Hey guys, Jeremiah here. I've got 4 topics in front of me. I'm not sure which one we'll go with first, but I guess I will go with holiness. Holiness for me is not in any way an aspect of religion. It is the pure essence that resides outside of all of existence, before there is an existence. And at the very same time, because there is an existence, it is also, I don't want to say the finest, but the thoroughness of all that is in existence. I don't mean to say that everything is holy, I mean to say that everything is by holiness. And that could really take into many directions of religion. I'm really not trying to go in any particular side to left or right on this. I just really want to express what I feel to be holy. Holiness for me, like I said, it is before all things are, before there is an existence, and it is also outside of existence, so that all of existence exists kind of like a ball, but on the other side of that ball would be what is holy. And by holy I mean correct, and that actually goes a little further than where I'd like to head with this, but because to me holiness is the author of what is correct, and for me what is correct is Christ. And forgive the background noise, it's my chickens, but holiness authored existence, and when holiness authored existence, there was an establishment made that is correct. I started to say correction, but I want to say correct, as in perfect and without taint. But the correct being Christ for me is the spirit of everything that is right. And I don't mean right as in what is right and wrong by man's understanding, but right as in every perfect aspect and angle of existence, every perfect intention of holiness before there's ever a problem in anything, so that love and laughter are pure and perfect and holy, and at the same time correct, because they were created and instituted. And I really hate to use the word institution, because institution becomes corrupt very quickly. But in this sense of institution, it is the one mind, the one holiness, the one essence and spirit, whereas all other institution is really just the collaboration of minds, and somebody's going to be dominant in some aspect or another, and at some point press for something that goes against others, and councils and so forth will come about, and you'll end up with corruption before you know it. But I'm really not doing justice to this topic, because I want something that's really pure and perfect in my expression versus pure and perfect in what is pure and perfect. And as I ramble a lot, let me try to bring this back into detail. God is holy. Now, the aspect of holiness for me is so grand that it can work the mind without even trying. Holiness in the spirit that precedes all of existence, before there is an existence, and as is at the moment, and always will be, doesn't have a form, and doesn't have a size or a dimension, doesn't have a right angle to it. Holiness is so beyond the fabric of existence that we really cannot grasp it. And even having a glimpse of understanding as to what God is just so impairing on our senses and our judgments alike, because the mystery that is so far in excess of that understanding just debilitates every avenue of thought and heart and expression. And the only purest comprehension that we truly can have is intention. We can't recognize the working mind of God. We can't, in many ways, even recognize the working heart of God. But we can empathize with holiness being intent, and holiness being expressive, and holiness being experienceable. I don't know what you can really throw to the back of experience to turn it into what I mean to say with that, but holiness as God is really, I'm going to use a word that's awkward, oceanic, impressive in depth, magnitude, in all the categories that I have to say is formless of, but at the same time, for a thought on our part, those dimensions are what we have to go with. God doesn't have dimension, but we have to perceive dimension in our thought just to recognize the lack of dimension. It's so, I hate to use the word again, awkward, but it really is an awkward expression. But holiness just blindsides us on so many levels, and at the same time is so beautiful, so wonderful. And if you can really, really get your heart to hear it, precious. Because it predates all existence. And doesn't predate all existence in the sense of a rock, but in the sense of life. Before all this consciousness that we perceive to be conscious existed. Before all the plants, and before all the animals, and before all the ocean, and before all the air and sky, and who might be out there in space. Before all of that, and at the same time beyond all of us. So that even when all of us and all of existence are gone, that pure, precious power and immense magnitude that is at the same time infinitesimal, that it is infinite, will still preside over a wonderful I guess I can just say preciousness. I know that's a word that's very tart on the ears sometimes, and not so relevant to our understanding, but there's really nothing more pure than the word precious when you stop and think about it. If you were to take gold and call it precious just because, you know, it's what it is, that's probably about as close as you can get materialistically to what God represents to me in the sense of precious. The essence quality would be love, and I know we're so indoctrinated with the word love that we really don't understand it. But imagine if the ocean was love, and every creature in it was loved by the ocean. Now, don't think about the salt water or anything like that. Just imagine that ebb and flow and current and all that moving majesty that surrounds every creature in that ocean. And imagine that majesty is conscious and alive, intent, purposeful, and expectant with love, just so that it embraces its creation to such an extent that it's welcoming when we die. Death isn't really the topic I want to throw in here. I don't see death as final. I know that's a challenge for a lot of ears, because while most of us don't see it as final, I mean, I really don't see it as final. It's like air, man. You're there. But before I lose my thought here, just going back to the ocean, if the ocean was love and it was God, then that would be pretty much what I'm trying to express here with holiness, because holiness and love are interchangeable. Every human on earth, regardless of what has been done to them, still has at their core, I mean as deep down as you can go, love. Whether they have been so shamed and wrong all of their life, depending on, I mean, regardless of age. You know, it could be a 7-year-old boy or girl that's just been, I'll leave the graphics alone, but that have no reason to believe in love, to think they'll ever experience love, or by their own experiences to even think they're worthy of love. At their very core is love. At the very core of every animal and human and being that has been created by God, there is His signature. His love is imprinted on us. I don't know how to word it in such a realistic view for us. We can't see it with a magnifying glass, but we can feel it. It's a challenge to feel, because we're so insensitive anymore, because of our reality, because of how we've been brought up, because of where we are. Most of the world is not free. Most of the world is in combat every day, whether it's for a piece of bread or, you know, to hang on to some level of hope when there's nothing but hopelessness, and a lot of people don't even have that. But I do believe I've just lost my thought. Forgive me. You'll encounter that in probably every video I go into. I cannot keep thought. I do apologize. But heart, the very core of our person is heart, and the very core of reality's heart is holiness. As I was saying, holiness is outside of existence, but at the very same time it is inside existence. Just as God is outside of us and God is inside of us. So we are able to impressionably sense holiness. And that's such a scary thing for religion and for so many people, because we really don't know how to interpret that impression. And, you know, to the one hand, you have people that you think are nuts and crazy, and a lot of times people think that of me. But they have such a deep impression of God in their heart that all the religious stuff is just, you know, a kind of restraint that at the same time shackles to them and keeps them confined, so that they're not a threat to reality as man knows it. And at the same time, you have people that are so afraid of holiness that they won't allow themselves to be impressioned by holiness. And I really have no answer for either of those, because there is a legitimate threat to every thought and feeling that we have, because the impression of holiness does away with everything we know. Everything we see, know, believe, fight for, live for, work for is nothing. I mean, it's what we understand, it's how we perceive reality, but it really is nothing. We have nothing. You know, I mean, I can have an office full of equipment and it will still be nothing. The same night I can go out, you know, just to get the mail and die. And at the same time, people everywhere are dying. And what meaning is there in anything without the impression of holiness in our hearts and lives, because without that singular impression, we do not have intent or purpose other than selfishness. And I don't mean to call upon selfishness in such a way that I'm demonstrating definable lines, but to speak of the majesty of God, I just want to say that it is so rich that even as I was saying with the understanding of holiness outside of reality, when you begin to sense it inside of yourself, that same rich level of appreciation is just dwarfed, because there's not a sensitivity to our person that is capable of understanding holiness, but yet we can experience it. And that really unfairly makes us a little crazy. It does, especially as you delve a little deeper into things. And I've been very impressed by God, but at the same time, none of us can really even scratch the surface, so that every human on earth can be impressed by God and have wonderful things to say. And so many of us are, and we probably say that, well, we will say the same things. We're going to say the same things, all of us, because that's the holiness that's impressing us. And I don't know what somebody else is writing, but if it's holy, it's going to be what I'm saying. And if somebody else is writing something that's holy, and somebody else is writing something that's holy, or somebody else is being impressed in the middle of prayer, it's all going to say the same things. Love and holiness and regard and consciousness, or conscience I should say. It all comes down to that singular impression that is so deeply, I don't want to say entrancing, or intrinsic, but impactful upon our deepest, I don't want to say consciousness, but existence. Because it's, I would say it's probably prior to our biological existence, but to our soul. God is so infused in our soul, so that all of our expressions, everywhere we look, turn, and perceive reality, there's still that impression with us that, I don't want to say dictates action, but is always calling upon us. I don't want to say like a best friend, but there's always that extra, I don't want to say sense or awareness, but that extra voice that's with us. And don't let that be mistaken for conscience, which is very that is very intrinsic to all of our aspects, beliefs, and so forth, but not quite where I'm trying to head with that. And you know what, I think we will end this video right here. It really did not serve the purpose for what I wanted to express, but I think it's enough just to say, look for God and find Him in your heart. And not just your heart that you sense within the world, because that's already indoctrinated by the world, and it will fight holiness all the way. Your heart and your mind are going to go crazy. I'm rather well known to everybody who has known me as being nuts, just because my heart and mind are enemies to me. And I don't mean for them to be enemies to me, but they rebuke God, so that all logic is wrong to me, and all that I feel is wrong to me. It's not that it's wrong that I feel them or sense them, it's that they're not correct. They're partial. They're sensitive, but they're not correct. And what I want is beyond what I can sense, is beyond what I can think, is beyond what I can feel. And it exists on its own, regardless of my thoughts, regardless of my feelings, regardless if I live or die today, regardless of what happens to me, or regardless of what is going on in the world. What I want is before existence existed. It is before all of reality. It is before all these wars, all these contests, all these dispositions, and before all material, what I want is truth, and what is true and pure really doesn't even create the right framing for saying the perfection in the sense of what is truly, truly perfect. God. And that will conclude this video. There will be more videos. I want to thank you guys for checking these out. Be sure to check out the rest, and God bless you.